Howdy, folks. Folks. Well, I'm down here in this rattlesnake den, and I know what some of you rattlesnakes out there want me to do. I'm not gonna do it. Not gonna eat broccoli. I'm the president. Don't have to do it. I said, Bar, you're not my mama. Alright, enough with the funny voices. You may have noticed that there's no visuals here except for the thumbnail. What you see in the thumbnail for this video is a solid state battery that I built about 10 years ago now, I think. It doesn't contain lithium, it doesn't contain any rare earth elements, but it's powering a flashlight. And so I would say that, people who are interested in UFO cover-ups and conspiracy theories and things like this, maybe look into why we still don't have these type of products out on the market in full force. Why we, so instead of worrying about UFO cover-ups or other things, excuse my lisp, I don't have my false teeth in. Maybe look into who killed Stan Meyer and why. Look into Joe Newman. This was a guy that lived in Mississippi back in the 80s. He built a very large electric motor that ran on tiny little batteries and was able to move like a 1,000-pound wheel, and it kicks off with instant torque too. So there's obviously some occulted physics, high energy physics, that is not being shared with academia, industry leaders, and of course the car companies have historically killed and suppressed the electric car technology too. So rather than worry about the reasons why, do something about it. Bring these clean energy technologies forth, because this is really key to your national security if you live in the West. And if you don't live in the West, say you live in Europe, then for example, YouTube's owners, social media's owners, Facebook, people like this, consider what side of the Atlantic Ocean your bread is being buttered on, and consider who's going to save your asses when Vladimir Putin marches into your town and starts telling you you have to worship the Russian version of Jesus or something, instead of whatever religion you currently, or whatever beliefs you currently hold. Let's say you're agnostic or even an atheist. You really want to be forced into a system where they have a state religion, where you have no rights, whether you're a woman or a person of color or LGBT or just a straight guy. So you're just a straight Christian, Catholic or something. Okay. Well, you really want to be forced into a non-Catholic version of Christianity? Let's say you're a Jewish person, a wealthy banker or something, living in Canada maybe. Take your money out of the oil company and start putting it into clean energy projects. So, anyhow, I just wanted to explain why there's no visuals here, audio only, and this is going to be sort of an intellectual conversation about climate science, the reality of global warming, not climate change. No, it's natural climate change, nothing to worry about. Yes, it is something to worry about. It may be all natural, but certainly human activity is helping to speed along the process of destroying our weather, which that's going to mean destroying our food supply system. Think starving to death is going to be a fun way to die? I don't think so. You think starving to death in a gulag in Siberia is going to be a fun way to die? I don't think so. So there is definitely a global war on information taking place right now, regardless of what nation you live in. So, in this video, I am going to basically do a reaction video, like really popular these days to have some young person listen to AC/DC for the first time or listen to the Doors for the first time and freak out on how awesome the Doors were. Man, I never knew about this. It's fun to see their reactions and everything. But again, there's no visuals here. This is just going to be auditory only because I want people to think about what I'm actually saying. Okay? Don't just write me off as always. He sees UFOs, so he must be crazy. That's not cool. Lots of police officers, incredible witnesses, Air Force pilots have seen these UFOs. But again, leaving that topic alone, probably from now on. I'm not a disclosure advocate. There's reasons why it's not just announced on TV or something. I mean, I've been dealing with this for 30 years, and I'm still having trouble coming to terms with the reality of, first of all, these critters are here, and second of all, what have they done for me lately? Seriously. If they're here to help humanity, save the world, Jesus Christ is going to land in some mile-wide saucer or something. Well, when's it going to happen? Get on with it. If you're going to save the world, save the world. Putin's not going to save the world, though. And buying oil and gas from Putin's not going to save the world. Selling weapons to Iranians or Russians is not going to save the world either. So, that being said, introduction over. And, you want to ghost me now or block me or take down my YouTube channel, fine, go ahead. This has not profited me one bit. This has been a free service to the American people. Everything I've done on social media was either to entertain people or to try to educate people or to try to sway their opinions away from the insane bullshit like this Marjorie Taylor Greene nut jobber has been spewing, or the idea Joe Biden's going to come he's going to confiscate my gas stove because, methane is bad for the environment, but no one's going to come steal your guns or confiscate your guns. No one's going to bust in your house to confiscate your gas stove. But, maybe look into manufacturing hydrogen stoves. So, that's what I'm going to be getting back into. I'm going to rebrand my channel, I guess you should say, back to the key important issues that are facing humanity as a whole, not just American national security or North Atlantic Treaty Organization security. I am going to address global security regarding the environment. I've got a friend out there who's addressing the threats from outer space, including comets and asteroids. These are probably the greater threat to human extinction than anything the ETs can do. Of course, I don't really agree with the ETs either. I don't think they're it was a mistake for Spielberg to portray them as this sweet little innocent little dude, and E.T. the Extraterrestrial is the movie I'm referring to. They may be innocent in the sense that they don't have the same sort of empathy for small animals that I do. If I see an animal suffering, I feel sorry for it. I don't just snatch it up and start doing experiments on it, which is what the ETs apparently do. Or they eat our body fluids in some way. Because like I said, in my close encounter I overheard one of them saying or thinking to himself, "Oh, thank God, because I'm so hungry." Now I told this to one of my neighbors, and he got pissed off at me. And I said, "What are you so pissed off? You've been watching History Channel. You've heard of all these people, talking about Roswell and all this. So what are you mad about?" "Well, you said that they believe in God. Aliens believe in God." Well, apparently they do, but they don't follow their own religion. Apparently, or they might believe in a God, but it's their God, not human, not my God. It's not humanity's God. Obviously, if the ETs do believe in this God, it's not the same God that I worship. So, because if they did, God said, "Thou shalt not kill," according to my religion, which is Christianity. So, anyhow, what I want to do was a reaction video here. This is one of my favorite channels to really I try to catch all of his videos, and so I wanted to shout out. His name is Paul Beckwith. I believe he lives in Canada, and I just want to say thank you, Paul, for the frequent uploads of videos with relevant and pertinent information that is critical to both national security and global security, which is climate change or global warming. So, without further ado, and again, Paul, I hope you don't mind me sort of responding and replying to you in this manner. I don't have a telephone. I don't have any way to travel to Canada and meet you in person yet. That those finances may become available in the future, but right at this moment, I'm basically just living like Robinson Crusoe on Mars, trying to survive on a war-riddled planet ruled by idiots, apparently. So, anyhow, go ahead and play the video.
Hello, I'm Paul Beckwith, and today a new report just came out from the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It's part of the AR6, which is Assessment Report 6, and it's the synthesis report, it's called. And this is a very significant report, and it has extremely dire language, and I'm going to get right into it because I have a lot to talk about with this report. So I'll get back to this diagram. It's one of the key, part of one of the key diagrams in the report. Basically, a tweet came across for me, which I retweeted. So follow me on Twitter if you're not, at Paul H. Beckwith. And if you haven't joined Twitter, I highly recommend that you join it just for the climate stuff alone. The UN just released a landmark climate change report. Here's the grim timeline it gives us. So let's see what the report. Now there's loads and loads of press releases today on this report. I'll show you a couple. The UN, here's the grim timeline it gives us. Okay, so here's one which was linked to in Twitter. In the time it will take a current 5th grader student to graduate high school, the world needs to realize massive, rapid, and sustained cuts to greenhouse gas emissions. In order to yank the planet back from the brink, we're hanging on to the brink with our fingernails. Or we may have gone over already, and we need to flap our wings and get back on to the brink. The climate change consequences are disastrous. Canada must slash carbon emissions by almost half in the next 7 years to prevent that same 5th grader from living out her old age in a world with increased floods, fires, crop failures, forced migration, and infectious disease outbreaks. It sounds like all that's happening already, right? So half in the next 7 years by 2030 and to zero by 2050, according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change synthesis report. In short, our world needs climate action on all fronts. Everything, everywhere, all at once. Said the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres at a news conference for the report's release. He suggested wealthy countries such as Canada need to reach net zero even sooner than 2050, by 2040. This can be done, he says. Some have already set a target as early as 2035. While Guterres referenced a science fiction movie in his remarks, the solutions to this crisis are both well understood, already in use, and in some cases almost embarrassingly simple.
Okay, I hope you can hear me. Embarrassingly simple, like the water burning car.
Systems. I talked about how important this is to protect water as well. This would just have massive payoffs. Solar and wind are contributing energy to power grids, even in fossil fuel friendly places like Texas. Okay, so this report is the world's current most comprehensive assessment of the current state of climate change. The last synthesis report came out in 2014, and it was a major impetus for the Paris Agreement, which was at the COP in 2015. This synthesis report, it puts everything together. It concludes years of work by hundreds of scientists around the globe, and will lay the stage for a different kind of momentous meeting later this year, the conference at which nations will assess their Paris commitments. So he's talking about the COP in Dubai this year. Climate change is the story of inequality. The 10% of households with the highest per capita emissions contribute at least a third of global consumption-based household greenhouse gas emissions. The bottom half of households contribute only 15%. So this is part of what...
Okay, I want to pause right here because he mentioned the nation of Dubai. Okay, this is an oil-rich nation, but they're already leading the way in clean energy and the application of solar power to their distribution systems. So if they have enough common sense, you think about nations like America, the United States, where we don't really have much access to easy oil anymore. You know, we have to go do deep well drilling out in the Gulf of Mexico and destroy the entire Gulf of Mexico and poison the fisheries and made the shrimp here in Louisiana taste like crap for a long time. So I just wanted to point that out, and also that these oil and gas areas, you know, Texas, Louisiana, the entire southern U.S. and the Midwest, get a lot of sunshine, and you know, leave it in the ground, or you know, jack the prices up sky high and sell it to Russia after they lose this war against Ukraine.
One of the figures here, so you see the temperature increasing over time. The scales here, you know, up to possibly 4 degrees Celsius by 2100. You know, here's where we are in 2020. The 2011 to 2020 average was about 1.1 warmer than 1850 to 1900 average. If you just take, you know, a couple of years around now, it's at least 1.2 degrees warmer. We're heading into a powerful El Nino. I think that could take us over 1.5 for a year or two.
Okay, the powerful El Nino is being aggravated by the atmosphere getting thicker and hotter and more full of methane and things like this. And my friends in California are suffering the consequences of this El Nino quite desperately right now.
If we have this super El Nino. And here's somebody born in 1950, and you can see you can see them 70 years old in 2020. You know, looking at somebody born now, okay, now you can see the different color bands from there's 5 scenarios, very high to very low, okay, as they age, as they go through life, if we still have a habitable planet, then the worst scenarios, you know, very, very huge warming, you know, up to 4 degrees, the best scenarios still, you know, between 2 and 2.5, if we actually get our act together. So we're looking at very dire future. If you're born in 1980, 70, you'll be 70 in 2050, and you still see lots of these impacts. Between 2010 and 2020, deaths from floods, droughts, and storms were 15 times higher in regions that were highly vulnerable to climate change, places that are far more likely to be poor and underdeveloped with fewer resources to adapt. Some parts of the world are already close to irreversible changes, including thawing Arctic permafrost. Guterres said, "I thank the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change for showing the fact-based, science-grounded way out of this climate mess. We have never been better equipped to solve the climate challenge, but we must move into warp-speed
Fact-based. We used to have a thing called facts before Facebook appeared.
That was one article. Here's another article. World on thin ice as UN climate report gives stark warning. Basically, humanity is on thin ice. That ice is melting fast, and basically the window is closing. It says pretty much what the other article says. The report's based on data from a few years ago, which is generally the case with the IPCC reports. The calculations about fossil fuel projects already in the pipeline do not include the increase in coal and natural gas after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Okay, many European countries increased their coal and natural gas consumption. And it comes it was only a week ago that the Biden administration approved the huge Willow oil drilling project in Alaska, which could produce up to 180,000 barrels of oil a day from the North Slope. Okay, so let's look at let's go into the details of what does the UN come out with here. So
I want to pause right here just to make a note for people that are not really up to date on climate science. Methane absorbs infrared radiation directly from the sun, and so it literally will get hotter in the same time period of radiation exposure. This is like, from sunrise to sunset, okay, on that particular side of the earth, which is a globe that rotates, for you kids out there that believe all this Russian bullshit about the flat earth and space is fake and all that. I'm not even going to get started on that. It's a little too late to re-educate the sort of idiot kids that we got out there that are really questioning reality. The reality you need to question is like, who killed Stan Meyer? How can we land a man on the moon but we can't cure cancer? Yeah, doesn't make sense, does it? Okay. So yeah. All right. Back to the thing. So what I'm saying here is that old-fashioned oil and gasoline is better than methane and gas stoves. Okay. I'm gonna come confiscate your gas stove, right? Well, these gas companies literally could just sort of sneakily switch over to oxyhydrogen gas, and the stoves could easily be converted to run on this hydrogen gas. So even if you don't have your own solar battery bank, and you don't have your own oxyhydrogen gas generator, I call it Brown's gas in honor of the man who actually sort of discovered this phenomenon of it's basically cold fusion energy, but implosion reactions, things like this, the fact that you can sublimate metals directly into a gas without having to melt them, there's no heat. So of course that gets off into other ideas about low heat signature like these UFOs have. They're not running on gasoline, or they would be easily seen by spy satellites. So anyways, the point I'm getting at is that the methane needs to go before the gasoline does, really. So also, crude oil is useful for all sorts of advanced materials, plastics, electronics, microchips, and casings for computers. Hey, I love my computer. I don't want to, if Joe Biden says he's going to come confiscate my computer because it's bad for the environment. Well, we will have a debate on that because you ain't taking my computer, buddy. Right? So I'm trying to appeal to the conservatives out there who apparently have been brainwashed by social media and mostly misinformation from the oil and gas industry and the Russians, their allies in Russia, who are really brutal murderers, and the dictator Putin. So just put that in your pipe and smoke it, and but don't burn methane. Switch to hydrogen.
If you go to their, if you click on the link in any of the press releases that you see, it'll probably come to this page, the AR6 Assessment Report 6 Synthesis Report, Climate Change 2023. Okay, so there was a session in Interlaken, Sweden, and out of that session came this report. And so there's a synthesis report. It's based on Working Group 1, 2, and 3, and 3 special reports. So it's based on a lot of work that's been done previous. And basically, if you click on the report itself, they don't have the long report out yet. They don't have the full volume report. They've got the summary, the figures, the headline statements, a press release, and a presentation. So I'll show you those things that have been released today. So the press release, which just came out today. There are multiple feasible and effective options to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to human-caused climate change, and they are available now. Okay, well, believe that or not, we got to try. We got to try.
They are. I'm here to tell you. This is real reality, not virtual reality. A lot of simple solutions are already available. It requires virtually no alterations to your daily luxuries in your life of eating burgers and having a gas stove and having lights that come on when you flip the switch. You really don't have to do anything. It's the producers and the upper ruling class of billionaires that need to change their ways, before they end up in the dark ages being ruled by communist China or dictator Putin.
Something. Mainstreaming effective and equitable climate action will not only reduce losses and damages for nature and people, it will also provide wider benefits. Okay? So they still think that if we act now, we can still secure a livable, sustainable future for all. In 2018, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, they highlighted the unprecedented scale of the challenge required to keep warming to 1.5. Okay, and we're 1.1 if you take the century, if you take a decadal average and compare it to the climatology from 1850 to 1900. But of course, every increment of warming results in rapidly escalating hazards. It doesn't go up linearly. Loss and damages in sharp focus. Almost half of the world's population lives in regions that are highly vulnerable to climate change. And in the last decade, deaths from floods, droughts, and storms were 15 times higher in highly vulnerable regions. Okay, so anyway, it goes on, but let's have a look at the report. I mean, they talk about sustainable development, conservation of about 30 to 50% of the Earth's land, fresh water, and ocean to ensure a healthy climate, healthy planet, changes in food sector, electricity, transport, changing everything basically. And I focused on water in the last couple videos, but it's we're on the cliff edge. I think we've gone over. Anyway, they did a PowerPoint little presentation here to what did they talk about in the synthesis report, and this was just released today. So this is a great picture. It shows the road. It looks like it's going off into the sky. It's just very foggy. It's in Korea. Fog opening the dawn. Great photo. The state of knowledge. Okay, so this synthesis report, it synthesizes all of these other reports, like Working Group 1, Climate Change 2021, the physical science basis. This is the working group 1, like I said. Climate Change 2022, impacts, adaptation, and vulnerability. And the mitigation report, there's always a 3. It came out in 2022 also. And then since then, there's been 3 special reports. One on the ocean and cryosphere in a changing climate, one on climate change and land use, and another one on global warming of 1.5 compared to 2. The warning: the pace and scale of climate action are insufficient to tackle climate change. Adverse impacts from human-caused change will intensify. Water scarcity and food production, huge issue. And these are hitting us very, very fast. As I said about water scarcity, 40% scarcity, 40% less than required in the next 7 years by 2030. Health and well-being, this is the coronavirus. This is, there's different symbols. This is migration. This is mental health, I believe. This is, I think, wildfires, lightning hitting your head. Cities, settlements, and infrastructure, flooding, damaged bridges, more and more money being spent. And then ecosystem structure, this is the changes in the timing, when flowers come out, when the animals are there to eat the flowers. If those timings are off, we get mass mortalities. This is the marine, and this is the wetland.
Timing is everything. I said this in my last video. The time to make these changes was like 50 years ago when this Stan Meyer guy had that water-burning car, or 40 years ago when Pons and Fleischmann discovered cold fusion. That's basically clean energy from lithium.
Okay, this is just a high-level thing. The extremes, of course, are becoming more widespread and pronounced with every increment of warming. It's completely, very highly nonlinear system. Now, they still have a hope. Some call it hopium, but they want to mainstream effective and equitable climate action now to reduce losses and damages for nature and people. Climate action provides co-benefits. Okay, it's the right thing to do. We need multiple feasible and effective options to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to human-caused climate change that's already in the pipeline. So the challenge, we got to cut emissions quickly. We got to slash fossil fuel emissions sharply, quickly, right away, yesterday. We've got to scale up practices and infrastructure to enhance resilience, cut global greenhouse gas emissions by nearly half by 2030. I mean, how is this? They're talking about this. I mean, is this even physically possible? Like, it's 2023. I mean, they have to say something, I guess. Action required along numerous dimensions. They can't just say, here, we're completely screwed. They got to say something to try to keep up hope. The path forward is clear. Tried and tested options available now need to be designed for diverse contexts, need to be scaled up and applied widely. Fairness is one of the solutions. Millions of people are exposed to acute food insecurity and reduced water security. Those who contributed the least to climate change are often the most vulnerable to the impacts. The biggest impacts in parts of Africa, Asia, Central South America, small island states, least developed countries, the Arctic. People in highly vulnerable areas are up to 15 times more likely to die in floods, droughts, storms compared to those in the most resilient places. Okay, we have to increase financing for climate action, but the money can't just be pissed away. It has to go to the right places, the key places. They're arguing for 3 to 6 times the current climate investment. They say there's enough global financing to rapidly reduce emissions. There always seems to be money from governments to bail out banks. I mean, I think the government has printed over $300 billion in the last week after the Silicon Valley bank collapse to try to stabilize the system. Other banks have collapsed. There's been run-on banks. I think Swiss banks were affected just recently. developing countries need external funding to meet the adaptation needs. Options are available to scale up financing. Climate resilient development needs to be done. Reduce poverty and hunger. Clean energy, water, and air. These are all high-level goals. Many consider them pipe dreams now. Enablers for effective climate action. Political commitment, inclusive governance, international cooperation. Effective ecosystem stewardship and sharing of diverse knowledge. Human factors, trust, recognition, collaboration. This is very...
All right, I got to pause again. He said political commitment. Okay, this is why I've been harping on the politics. The solutions are available, like he said, or like this report says. In many cases, they're very simple. If a trained monkey like your old buddy Sunsaver here can pull a solid state battery out of his butt and turn the lights on after a hurricane with no rare metals or no, these are environmentally sustainable, easy to find materials that we have an abundance of here in the USA and in Ukraine. That's why they're invading. That's why they want Bakhmut. Bakhmut is sitting right on top of some really valuable mineral wealth that could be used to save the planet and save your child's life. If you have a child, I deliberately chose not to have children because I saw this coming like 30 years ago when I started looking into the real reality. Why my invention of artificial reality was renamed virtual reality. Well, apparently they didn't want people thinking about, hey, there might be an actual real reality out there. The real reality of global warming caused by our foolish actions. Now, I'm not trying to guilt or shame anybody. I'm just saying that if the politicians would get on board together in a bipartisan fashion, get rid of the oil company influence and the Russian influence in our politics, they could create jobs here in Louisiana, Texas, California, Florida, all these red states. You can stay red with your social issues if you want to, but if you're a conservative person that believes in these sort of Christian values, well, you're just going to leave your kid out there to be crucified? You could be creating jobs. We need to reindustrialize the USA. Not just in weapons and advanced secret technology, but these simple solutions could be done and put out there and put on the market, and people could be buying maybe a little bit more expensive product that doesn't break down and have to go into landfill 2 weeks later. USB cables that are treated like Coke bottles or something. Disposable item, all that copper wire in there just going into landfills. And start mining the landfills around here. There's going to be all kind of copper and aluminum and old appliances down these landfills. You don't need to go rape Mother Nature and dig a new mine somewhere. You could probably get these materials much cheaper just by digging through people's garbage. That's what I do. That's how I live. I live by recycling my neighbor's junk. When they throw something out, especially if it's electronic or has electrical in there, I'm going to use it for something, or I'm going to store it for my own future, doomsday survival. So that's what I'm going to be getting back into. I guess I'm going to go ahead and end this video now because this is a very long conversation that Paul has put on here. But I suggest you go on to Twitter and look for Paul Beckwith's channel as he suggested. Again, if you're concerned about national security issues or the environment, which is a national security issue, or if you're a globalist, or if you're an anti-globalist, if you're an anti-globalist and you all these elite and you want to bitch about the government and big government and all this, take it upon yourself to look into these things. Find out who killed Stan Meyer and put him on trial, instead of going after the Air Force for covering up UFOs or whatever, these people are trying to do. They're just shit stirring. Sorry for the foul language. Now, I wouldn't talk like this if I was in front of the UN or in front of some dignitaries. I don't. But this is just my real reaction video here to my new friend Paul, which again we haven't met, and he hasn't really responded to any of my comments on his channel. But I've made a lot of comments on Paul's channel too. So if you want to know more about, how's old Sun Saver doing, how's he feeling today, well, you can just read my comments on Paul's channel. I comment on there quite a lot because he's been making a video almost every day here recently. So with that, I guess I just want to say thanks again for listening, and I'm sorry if anybody might feel like my thumbnail is clickbait. Again, the thumbnail for this video is going to be a solid state battery that won't catch fire and not a danger to society or anything. I'm trying to save society here. I'm trying to save our American ways and our American values. Truth, freedom, and justice for all. Thanks for listening.